The embers of Valoria's capital city still smoldered as Commander Rintalos surveyed what remained of the once majestic skyline. 3 days since the attack, and the stench of burning synthplast and scorched earth still permeated everything. He adjusted the filter on his combat helmet and continued his trek through the wasteland of fallen spires and shattered hopes. Signals getting stronger, Commander, his lieutenant called from 20 paces ahead, waving a detection unit that pulsed with increasing frequency. Life signs approximately 300 meters northeast. Rin nodded curtly. The evacuation had been nearly complete when the Draconis, as the military had classified them, descended upon the colony world. Nearly complete wasn't good enough. Not for him. Not for the oath he'd sworn to protect the citizens of the Terran Alliance. As they approached the coordinates, Rin noticed the remains of what had been a residential dome. The structure's skeletal frame reached toward the ash-clouded sky like accusatory fingers. The detection unit chirped more insistently now. Under there, Rin pointed to a partially collapsed section where the residential unit's reinforced basement level remained somewhat intact. Breach pattern Delta. His 6-person rescue team moved with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, they'd created an opening large enough to access the lower level. Rin activated his helmet lights and was the first to descend. The basement level had served its purpose, protecting its occupants from the worst of the destruction above. But it hadn't been enough to save everyone. Rin counted 4 bodies, adults, arranged respectfully against one wall. They'd died from smoke inhalation, he guessed. But the detection unit hadn't led them here for the dead. A small noise from the far corner caught his attention. Pushing aside debris, Rin discovered a makeshift shelter constructed from furniture and padding. Inside, curled into a tight ball, was a child, a girl no more than 6 years old, clutching a worn stuffed animal that resembled one of old Earth's elephants. She looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes, but didn't scream. Shocked, probably. It's okay, Rin said softly, removing his helmet so she could see his face. I'm Commander Rintalos of the Terran Alliance. We're here to take you somewhere safe. The girl didn't respond, just clutched her elephant tighter. What's your name? He tried again. After a long silence, she whispered, Ellie. That's a pretty name, Ellie. Is this your elephant? He gestured to the stuffed toy. She nodded. Does he have a name too? Trunkle, she mumbled. Rin smiled. Well, Ellie and Trunkle, would you like to come with us? We have food, clean water, and a safe place away from here. Ellie looked at the bodies against the wall, then back to Ruin. Her bottom lip trembled. They went to sleep and wouldn't wake up. Rin swallowed the lump in his throat. I know, sweetheart. I'm very sorry. They were very brave to protect you. Will you be brave too and come with us now? After a moment's hesitation, she nodded again and reached for his hand. Rin scooped her up, stuffed elephant and all, and carried her out of the ruins. By nightfall, they'd returned to the Terran Alliance outpost 30 kilometers outside the devastated capital. The facility had been converted into an evacuation center and military command post. Rin delivered Ellie to the medical staff for evaluation and went to deliver his report to High Command. Admiral Vargas looked like she hadn't slept since the attack. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Commander Talos, she acknowledged as he entered the command center. Your team found survivors? Just one, Admiral. A 6-year-old girl. The rest of her family didn't make it. Vargas nodded grimly. Better than no survivors at all. We'll add her to the evacuation roster for the next transport. With respect, Admiral, what's our strategy against these Draconis? This is the 3rd colony they've hit in as many months. We can't just keep evacuating. The Admiral's expression hardened. That information is classified, Commander. With respect. That will be all, Commander Talos. She cut him off with a tone that brooked no argument. Get some rest. Your team deploys again at 0600. Rin saluted crisply and exited the command center, frustration simmering beneath his disciplined exterior. On his way to the barracks, he stopped by the medical wing to check on Ellie. He found her sitting on an examination table, clutching Trunkle while a medic scanned her with a diagnostic tool. When she saw Ron, her face lit up with the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Commander, she called out, as if they were old friends. Hello again, Ellie, he said, approaching her. How are you feeling? Hungry, she replied honestly, which made both Ron and the medic laugh. She's in good health, Commander, the medic reported. Dehydrated and malnourished, but nothing serious. Remarkable, considering she was down there for 3 days. Ren nodded, relieved. Good. She'll be on the next evacuation transport. Something flickered across the medic's face. Hesitation, maybe even guilt. Before Ren could question it, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Attention all personnel, the PA system announced in its calm, artificial voice. Draconis signatures detected approaching from Vector 227. Estimated arrival, 15 minutes. All non-combat personnel report to emergency shelters. Combat units to defensive positions. The medic paled. They've never hit the same location twice. They have now, Ren growled, already moving toward the door. Get her to the shelter, immediately. As he raced toward the armory, Ren couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The Draconis had displayed consistent attack patterns until now. Why change tactics? Why return to a colony they'd already devastated? He didn't have time to dwell on these questions. Within minutes, he was fully armed and directing his team to their defensive position on the facility's eastern perimeter. Through his tactical visor, he could see them approaching, massive winged forms silhouetted against the smoke-stained sunset. The Draconis had earned their classification honestly. They resembled nothing so much as the dragons of Earth's mythology, serpentine bodies, leathery wings, armored scales that had proven resistant to standard weaponry. Xenobiologists theorized they might be an artificially evolved species, given their improbable combination of traits. Whatever their origin, they were undeniably intelligent, coordinated, and lethal. 3 of the creatures swooped low over the facility's defensive perimeter, unleashing streams of superheated plasma from specialized organs in their throats. The facility's shields absorbed the first barrage, but Ren knew they wouldn't hold indefinitely. Concentrated fire on the lead Draconis, he ordered. His team and the other defensive units opened fire with high-energy weapons specifically calibrated to penetrate the creature's scales. The battle raged for nearly 20 minutes. The facility's defenses held, barely, and they managed to drive off the attackers, even bringing down one of the smaller Draconis. As the creatures retreated beyond weapon range, Ren allowed himself a moment of relief. It was short-lived. Commander Talos, report to command immediately, his comm unit announced. When Ren arrived at the command center, the atmosphere was tense. Admiral Vargas stood over the holographic tactical display, her expression grim. Commander, she acknowledged. The attack was a diversion. A diversion for what? Ren asked, though a cold dread was already forming in his gut. During the attack, someone accessed the secure medical wing. The girl you rescued. She's gone. Ren felt as if he'd been struck. What do you mean, gone? Evacuated to the shelters? No, Vargas said flatly. Taken. And the security footage shows it wasn't the Draconis who took her. She activated a display screen showing grainy footage of 2 human figures in Alliance uniform escorting Ellie through a service corridor. These men don't match any personnel records. They were using fake credentials. Why would anyone? Ren began, but the Admiral cut him off. We've tracked their vessel. It's heading for the Callisto Ridge, the mountain range 20 kilometers north of here. She fixed Ren with a steely gaze. I'm authorizing you to take your team and recover the girl. But there's something you should know first. The Admiral lowered her voice. The girl is special, Commander. Initial medical scans detected unusual brainwave patterns and trace amounts of an unidentified biochemical compound in her bloodstream. We believe, she hesitated, then continued. We believe the Draconis are specifically targeting certain individuals with these markers. All previous attacks have focused on population centers where such individuals were present. Ren struggled to process this information. You're saying they're hunting people like Ellie? What? That's what we need to find out. Which is why recovering her is paramount. The people who took her, we suspect they're using her as bait. Bait? Ren felt sick. They're using a child to lure these creatures? To capture one, yes. A radical faction within our own scientific community believes studying a live specimen is our only hope of understanding their weaknesses. The Admiral's face showed her disgust. I don't condone their methods, but the Alliance Council is divided on the matter. Ren clenched his fists. So you want me to recover Ellie before these scientists can use her as bait, or before the Draconis find her? Exactly. And Commander, Vargas added, her voice deadly serious. This mission is off the record. If you're captured, the Alliance will disavow any knowledge of your actions. Is that understood? Ren nodded grimly. Perfectly, Admiral. Within the hour, Ren and his team were aboard a stealth transport heading for the Callisto Ridge. The jagged mountains loomed against the night sky, their peaks disappearing into low-hanging clouds. Somewhere in that hostile terrain was a frightened little girl being used as bait for monsters. LZ in 2 minutes, the pilot announced. Sensors detect a small research facility embedded in the eastern face of the central peak. Heavy energy signatures consistent with containment technology. Any sign of Draconis activity? Ren asked. Negative, but there's significant atmospheric interference. They could be masking their approach. Ren briefed his team quickly. Our priority is the girl. We get in, extract her, and get out. Any resistance is to be neutralized with non-lethal force if possible. These may be Alliance citizens, however misguided. The transport touched down in a small clearing a kilometer from the facility. The team disembarked and began their approach on foot, using the dense forest for cover. As they drew closer, Ren activated his tactical scanner, mapping the facility's layout. I'm reading 12 human life signs, he reported quietly, and 1 anomalous signature. Possibly our target. They reached the facility's perimeter without incident. It was smaller than Ren had expected, a prefabricated research station partially embedded in the mountainside, with a larger structure that appeared to be a hangar or containment area connected to it. Too quiet, Lieutenant Vega muttered beside him. No perimeter guards. They weren't expecting company, Ren replied, though he shared her unease. Let's move. They breached the facility through a maintenance access point, encountering no resistance. The interior was clinically sterile, white walls, bright lighting, the soft hum of advanced equipment. They moved silently through the corridors toward the anomalous life sign. As they approached the central chamber, Ren heard voices. He signaled his team to hold position and crept forward alone to assess the situation. Through a reinforced viewport, he could see a large circular chamber with a raised platform in the center. On the platform, inside what appeared to be a transparent containment field, sat Ellie. She still clutched her stuffed elephant, her small face tear-streaked but defiant. Around the chamber, scientists in white lab coats monitored equipment and conferred in hushed tones. Energy signature is perfect, one was saying. The pheromone compound has been synthesized and aerosolized throughout the valley. We should have company soon. And the containment field will hold? Another asked nervously. Long enough to secure the specimen. Once it approaches the girl, we drop the exterior shield dome, allowing it entry. The moment it's inside, we activate the neurological disruptors and tranquilize it. And the girl? A pause. Acceptable collateral damage if necessary. The knowledge we gain could save millions. Ren had heard enough. He returned to his team and outlined what he'd seen. We need a diversion to draw them away from Ellie. Once the room is clear, we extract her and withdraw. And if this specimen arrives while we're in there? Vega asked. Then we deal with that too, Ren said grimly. Set charges on their power generator. On my mark, detonate them. Vega nodded and dispatched 2 team members to place the explosives. Minutes later, they reported ready. Execute, Ren ordered. The explosion rocked the facility. Alarms blared, and emergency lighting replaced the bright overheads. As predicted, most of the scientists rushed from the central chamber toward the source of the explosion. Ren and his remaining team members moved swiftly into the chamber. Only 2 scientists remained, frantically trying to stabilize their systems. Terran Alliance military. Ren announced, weapon raised. Step away from the controls. The scientists froze, then slowly raised their hands. Ren approached the containment field where Ellie sat. When she saw him, her eyes widened. Commander. Hello again, Ellie, he said, searching for the field controls. We're going to take you home now. You don't understand what you're doing, one of the scientists protested. That child is the key to understanding these creatures. Her biochemistry is none of your concern, Ren cut him off. She's a child, not a lab rat. He found the control panel and deactivated the containment field. Ellie immediately ran to him, wrapping her arms around his leg. The specimen is already en route, the scientist warned desperately. The pheromone trail leads here. If you take her, it will follow. Then we'd better move quickly, Ren said, lifting Ellie into his arms. Secure these 2. He ordered his team members, who promptly bound the scientists. They were halfway to the exit when the facility shook violently. A terrible screech echoed through the corridors, a sound Ren had heard before during the attacks on the colony. "They're here," Ellie whispered, burying her face against Ren's shoulder. "Change of plans," Ren announced to his team. "We head for the hangar. There should be transport vehicles we can use." They altered course, moving as quickly and quietly as possible through the now darkened corridors. The facility shuddered again, more violently this time. The sounds of tearing metal and crumbling concrete grew closer. As they entered the hangar, Ren saw what they were up against. The roof had been partially torn away, and through the gap, he could see not one but 3 Draconis circling. One descended partially into the opening, its massive head swiveling as if searching. When its gaze landed on their group, on Ellie, it let out another piercing shriek. "To the transport now," Ren ordered, pointing to a sleek atmospheric shuttle at the far end of the hangar. His team sprinted toward it, Ren bringing up the rear with Ellie clutched tightly in his arms. They had almost reached the shuttle when the Draconis smashed through the remainder of the roof, raining debris down upon them. Ren shielded Ellie with his body as chunks of metal and concrete clattered around them. The creature landed heavily on the hangar floor, its massive form blocking their path to the shuttle. It was even more imposing up close, at least 15 meters from snout to tail tip, with iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to purple in the emergency lighting. Its eyes, disturbingly intelligent, fixed on Ellie. Ren set her down behind him and raised his weapon. "Get to the shuttle," he told his team. "I'll hold it off." "Commander," Vega began to protest. "That's an order, Lieutenant. Get her out of here." Vega hesitated, then nodded sharply. She gathered Ellie, who was staring wide-eyed at the Draconis, and began edging around the perimeter of the hangar with the rest of the team. Ren opened fire on the creature, aiming for its eyes and the softer scales of its throat. The Draconis recoiled, more from surprise than pain, then advanced on him with frightening speed. It snapped at him with jaws that could easily crush a ground vehicle. Ren rolled aside, continuing to fire, drawing its attention away from the others. From the corner of his eye, he saw Vega and the team reaching the shuttle, Ellie in tow. Good. Now he just needed to stay alive long enough for them to take off. The Draconis lashed out with its tail, catching Ren mid-roll and sending him crashing into a stack of supply crates. Pain exploded across his ribs, and his weapon clattered away across the floor. The creature loomed over him, opening its massive jaws. Heat gathered in its throat, the precursor to its plasma breath. Ren closed his eyes, preparing for the end. "Stop!" a small voice cried out. Ren's eyes snapped open. To his horror, Ellie had broken free from Vega and now stood halfway between him and the Draconis, her arms spread wide as if to shield him. "Don't hurt him," she shouted at the creature. Incredibly, the Draconis paused. It tilted its massive head, studying the small human child who dared to challenge it. The heat in its throat subsided. It lowered its head until it was almost level with Ellie, nostrils flaring as it scented her. Ren tried to move, to reach her, but pain lanced through his chest. "Broken ribs, definitely." "Ellie," he gasped. "Run." She didn't run. Instead, she took a step toward the Draconis, still clutching her stuffed elephant. "He's my friend," she told the creature, as if explaining something to a confused peer. "He saved me. Twice." The Draconis made a rumbling sound deep in its chest. It wasn't the aggressive screech they'd heard earlier, but something almost inquisitive. What happened next defied everything Ren thought he knew about these creatures. The Draconis extended a foreclaw, each talon longer than Ellie's arm, and with surprising gentleness, touched the stuffed elephant she held. Ellie giggled, a sound so incongruous in this scenario that Ren wondered if he was hallucinating from his injuries. "This is Trunkle," she told the creature. "He protects me from bad dreams." The Draconis made that rumbling sound again, then raised its head sharply, looking toward the shattered roof. The other 2 Draconis could be heard circling outside, their calls growing more insistent. The creature looked back at Ellie, then at Ren, then at the shuttle where Vega and the team waited, weapons trained on it, but holding fire, apparently as stunned by this exchange as Ren was. Then, with a decisive movement, the Draconis lowered its body to the ground beside Ellie, its posture unmistakable. It wanted her to climb on. Ren watched in disbelief as Ellie, without a moment's hesitation, climbed onto the Draconis's back, settling herself between two of the armored ridges that ran along its spine. The creature remained perfectly still during this process, its intelligent eyes never leaving Rin. "Commander, come on," Ellie called, as casual as if inviting him onto a carnival ride. "He wants to help us." "Ellie, no," Vega shouted from the shuttle. "Commander, we need to extract now." Rin struggled to his feet, fighting through the pain of his broken ribs. The situation defied all tactical analysis. Everything they thought they knew about the Draconis, that they were hostile invaders bent on humanity's destruction, was being challenged by the sight of a 6-year-old girl perched comfortably on one's back. The Draconis turned its massive head toward Rin and lowered its body further, clearly extending the same invitation to him. The other two creatures continued to circle outside, their calls growing more urgent. Rin made a decision that would likely end his military career, if not his life. "Hold position," he called to his team. Then, to Ellie, "Are you sure about this?" She nodded firmly, patting the creature's scales. "He's scared too, but he's trying to help." With a silent prayer to whatever forces might be listening, Rin approached the Draconis. Up close, he could see intricate patterns within its scales, and what he had taken for simple armor was in fact a complex arrangement of protective plates embedded with what appeared to be sensory organs. He carefully climbed up behind Ellie, positioning himself so he could hold her securely with one arm while gripping one of the creature's dorsal spines with his other hand. "Now what?" he asked Ellie. She leaned forward and patted the Draconis's neck. "We need to go somewhere safe," she told it, as if it could understand every word. "The bad people want to hurt you." The creature made a sound that was almost a purr, then tensed its powerful muscles. Rin barely had time to tighten his grip before it launched itself upward, powerful wings unfurling to catch the air as they burst through the shattered roof of the hangar. "Commander!" Vega's voice crackled over his comm unit as they soared into the night sky. "What are your orders?" Rin could see the shuttle powering up below them. "Follow at a safe distance," he managed, the wind whipping his words away. "Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage the Draconis." The other two creatures fell into formation alongside them, flanking their companion. Rather than attacking, they seemed to be escorting it. The formation banked northward, deeper into the mountains. Ellie laughed with delight as they rode the air currents, her small hands gripping the scales with complete confidence. Rin, despite his training and experience, found the sensation of flight without a vehicle both terrifying and exhilarating. "Where is it taking us?" he asked Ellie, raising his voice above the wind. "Home," she replied simply. To their home. They flew for nearly half an hour, the jagged peaks of the Callisto Ridge giving way to a vast plateau hidden deep within the mountain range. As they descended toward it, Rin saw what appeared to be a massive impact crater, its interior glowing with an ethereal blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The Draconis landed at the edge of the crater, crouching low to allow its passengers to dismount. Rin helped Ellie down, then slid off himself, wincing as the movement aggravated his injured ribs. The other two creatures landed nearby, watching with what Rin could only interpret as curiosity. Now that he wasn't fighting for his life, he could see subtle differences between them, variations in coloration, size, and the patterns of their scales. "Commander Talos," Vega's voice came through his comm, "we've landed 2 kilometers south of your position. Awaiting orders." "Maintain position," Rin replied quietly. "No aggressive action. I'll report when I can." Ellie, still clutching Trunkle, approached the edge of the crater and peered down. Rin followed, ready to pull her back if necessary. What he saw below made him forget the pain in his ribs. The crater contained what could only be described as a colony. Structures that appeared to be grown rather than built rose from the crater floor, pulsing with the same blue light they'd seen from above. Dozens of Draconis moved among these structures, some flying, others walking on the ground. And there were smaller figures too, unmistakably human in form, moving freely among the creatures. "What is this place?" Rin breathed. "A refuge," came a voice from behind them. Rin spun around, instinctively placing himself between Ellie and the newcomer. A woman stood there, human, in her 50s perhaps, with silver-streaked dark hair and the weathered complexion of someone who spent much time outdoors. "My name is Dr. Mira Chun," she said, approaching slowly with her hands visible. Former xenobiologist with the Terran Alliance. And you're wearing an Alliance military uniform, though I don't recognize the insignia. Commander Rintalos, he replied cautiously. Special Operations. This is Ellie. We were brought here by. He gestured to the Draconis that had carried them. Dr. Chen smiled. Ah, you've met Azura. She's one of our sentinels. She looked at Ellie with particular interest. And you, young one, must be very special indeed if Azura chose to bring you here. The Draconis, Azura, is female? Ren asked, processing this new information. Yes, all three who escorted you are female. The males are smaller, believe it or not. Dr. Chen crouched to Ellie's level. How did you come to be here, little one? Ellie clutched Trunkle tighter. Bad people took me from the hospital. They put me in a glass room. They wanted the dragons to come. Her lower lip trembled. Then the commander came to save me again, but the dragon, Azura, came too. But she didn't hurt us. She wanted to help. Dr. Chen nodded, as if this made perfect sense. Azura sensed your connection potential. It's rare, especially in one so young. She stood and addressed Ren. Commander, I imagine you have questions. Many of them. Would you and Ellie join me? There's much to explain. Dr. Chen led them down a winding path into the crater. As they descended, Ren noticed that the blue light emanated from crystalline formations embedded in the rock walls. The air grew warmer and carried a faint, pleasant scent he couldn't identify. Those scientists who took Ellie, Dr. Chen said as they walked. They're part of a faction that believes the only way to deal with the Draconis is to capture and study them, to find weaknesses to exploit. They discovered that certain humans produce a biochemical compound that the Draconis can sense over vast distances. They've been using these humans as bait. Like Ellie, Rin said grimly. Yes, though I doubt they realize the true significance of what they've found. She glanced back at Ellie, who was trailing her fingers along the glowing crystal formations with fascination. The compound isn't just something the Draconis can sense. It's a precursor to compatibility, a marker that indicates potential for neural synchronization. They reached the crater floor, where the strange, organic-looking structures stood. Up close, Rin could see they were indeed grown. Crystalline formations similar to those in the walls, but larger and more complex, shaped into dwellings and other functional structures. Humans and Draconis moved about, engaged in what appeared to be a normal community routine. Some humans rode on the backs of the smaller Draconis. Others worked alongside the creatures on various tasks. None showed any fear. Welcome to Haven, Dr. Chen said, gesturing to the settlement. Founded 15 years ago when I and a handful of other researchers discovered the truth about the Draconis. Which is, Rin prompted. They're refugees, Commander. Just like us. She led them to one of the larger structures, which opened as they approached, the crystalline material reconfiguring itself to form an entrance. They came to our star system fleeing something far worse than anything humanity has encountered. They call themselves the Khizri, though that's the closest approximation our vocal apparatus can manage. Inside the structure was a comfortable living space, illuminated by the same blue light. Dr. Chun invited them to sit on cushions arranged around a low table. Ellie immediately made herself comfortable, seemingly unfazed by the extraordinary circumstances. The attacks on human settlements, Rin said, remaining standing. How do you explain those? Dr. Chen sighed. Miscommunication at first, then desperation. The Khizri communicate primarily through a form of telepathy that humans generally can't perceive, except for those with the compatibility marker, like Ellie. When they first arrived, they attempted to make contact, to warn us about the threat following them. But we interpreted their approach as hostile. So we fired first, Rin said, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. Yes. After that, a cycle of escalation began. But the Khizri weren't attacking randomly. They were searching for compatible humans, those who could help them communicate with the rest of humanity. That's what Admiral Vargas told me, that the Draconis, the Khizri, were targeting specific individuals. Your Admiral was partly right, but not about the reason. Dr. Chun poured a clear liquid from a crystalline pitcher into 3 cups. The Khizri are a highly telepathic species. Their entire society functions on shared consciousness. When they arrived in our system, they were isolated in a way they had never experienced before. Ren finally sat down, his mind racing to process these revelations. And the compatible humans? What happens to them? They become bridges. Through a neural link with a compatible human, a Khizri can communicate with other humans. She smiled at Ellie, who was sipping the offered drink curiously. That's why Azura was so drawn to you, little one. You have an exceptionally strong compatibility marker. Is that why I can hear them? Ellie asked suddenly. Both adults turned to her in surprise. Hear them? Dr. Chun asked gently. Ellie nodded. Not words exactly, but she tapped her temple. In here, like music and colors and feelings all mixed together. Dr. Chin's eyes widened. That's extraordinary. Most compatible humans need direct physical contact to establish a connection, and even then, it takes practice to interpret. A commotion outside interrupted them. Dr. Chun rose quickly and went to the entrance. Ren followed, instinctively placing himself between whatever threat might be approaching and Ellie. Outside, the Khizri were gathered, their attention focused skyward. Ren followed their gaze and saw multiple craft entering the atmosphere above the crater, Alliance military vessels. They found us, he said grimly. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. We've managed to stay hidden for 15 years. The only way they could have found this place is by tracking you. Ren realized she was right. His combat suit would have a standard military tracker. He'd been so focused on Ellie's safety and the revelations about the Khizri that he'd overlooked this basic fact. I need to contact my team, he said, activating his comm unit. Lieutenant Vega, come in. Commander, Vega's voice replied immediately. We've got company. Multiple Alliance vessels approaching your position. They're not responding to hails. It's the science faction, Dr. Chun said urgently. They must have tracked your team from the research facility. Ren made a decision. Vega, listen carefully. The situation is not what we thought. The Draconis are not hostile invaders. I need you to contact Admiral Vargas directly, bypass all other channels. Tell her the Callisto Ridge settlement is under my protection by direct order. Authorization code Talos 7 Delta 9. Sir, that's a sovereignty declaration, Vega replied, shock evident in her voice. I'm aware, Lieutenant. Execute immediately. A sovereignty declaration was a rarely used protocol that allowed Alliance military commanders to claim emergency protective jurisdiction over a settlement or population. Using it meant Ren was essentially declaring the Khizri settlement an independent entity under his personal protection, a drastic action that would have serious repercussions for his career. We need to prepare for the possibility that they won't honor the declaration, Ren told Dr. Chun. How many people are here? 87 humans, including children. 114 Khizri of various ages. Her expression was grim but resolute. We have some defenses, but nothing that would stand against a determined military assault. Ellie had joined them at the entrance, her small face serious as she looked up at the approaching vessels. They're scared, she said quietly. The Khizri? Ren asked. She nodded. And angry. They've lost so much already. She looked up at Ren with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than her 6 years. We can't let the bad people hurt them. Ren crouched down to her level, ignoring the pain in his ribs. Ellie, I promise you, I will do everything I can to protect you and the Khizri. But I need you to stay with Dr. Chun and do exactly what she tells you. Can you do that for me? Ellie nodded solemnly, then surprised him by throwing her arms around his neck in a tight hug. Be careful, Commander, she whispered. Ren returned the hug, something tightening in his chest that had nothing to do with his injuries. I will. Minutes later, Ren was once again on Azura's back, soaring upward toward the approaching vessels. There were 5 of them, 2 larger troop transports and 3 smaller, faster craft that he recognized as scientific research vessels modified for military use. They were descending in a standard containment pattern, preparing to surround the crater. Ren activated his comm unit's emergency broadcast function. Attention Alliance vessels. This is Commander Ren Talos, Special Operations Division. The settlement below is under my protection by Sovereignty Declaration. Any hostile action will be considered a direct violation of Alliance Charter. Stand down and await further instructions. There was a long pause. Then a familiar voice responded, not over the comm, but on a direct, encrypted channel that only someone with high-level clearance could access. Commander Talos, Admiral Vargas said, her tone a mixture of relief and exasperation. You've put me in quite a difficult position. Admiral, Ren acknowledged, surprised. You're personally leading this operation? After your lieutenant contacted me with that sovereignty declaration, I had no choice. There was a pause. Is the girl safe? Yes, as are the 86 other humans living peacefully among the beings you've classified as Draconis. Rin guided Azura to hover midway between the vessels and the crater. Admiral, everything we thought we knew about them is wrong. They're refugees, not invaders. They've been trying to communicate with us. Commander, I understand you've been through a traumatic experience, and your concern for the child is admirable, but... With respect, Admiral, Rin interrupted, I'm in full possession of my faculties. The attacks on our colonies were a desperate attempt to find humans compatible with their telepathic communication methods. This settlement has been here for 15 years, humans and Khizri living in harmony. There was a long silence. Finally, the Admiral spoke again. Khizri, that's what they call themselves. And they're fleeing from something, Admiral. Something that followed them to our system. That's what they've been trying to warn us about. One of the smaller vessels broke formation, descending toward Rin and Azura. The Khizri tensed beneath him but didn't retreat. I'm coming down to assess the situation personally, Vargas said. Order your mount to land where I can meet with you. Negative, Admiral. I'll meet you, but not alone. One unarmed shuttle, you and no more than 2 others. We land at the edge of the crater, away from the settlement. Another long pause. You're giving me orders now, Commander? I'm protecting innocent lives, human and Khizri alike. The Sovereignty Declaration stands until I'm convinced of your peaceful intentions. The Admiral's sigh was audible over the comm very well. 1 shuttle, 3 personnel, including myself. Unarmed. 20 minutes later, Rin stood at the designated landing site with Azura beside him. The Alliance shuttle descended smoothly, touching down 30 meters away. 3 figures emerged, Admiral Vargas in the lead, flanked by a man in a Science Division uniform and another in military dress. Vargas approached cautiously, her eyes never leaving Azura. To her credit, she showed no fear, only cautious assessment. Commander, she greeted him formally. I see you've made a new friend. Admiral, Rin returned the greeting. This is Azura. She's a sentinel for the Khizri settlement. He gestured to the 2 accompanying Vargas. Your colleagues. Dr. Marcus Reed, Xenobiology Division. She indicated the scientist, and General Hadrian Cole, Alliance Security Council. The general stepped forward. Commander Talos, your sovereignty declaration has caused quite a stir at headquarters. With respect, General, we haven't been fighting them. We've been misunderstanding them. Rin stood his ground. I've seen their settlement. I've seen humans and Khizri living together peacefully. The attacks on our colonies were never meant as aggression. They were searching for compatible humans who could help them communicate with us. Compatible how? Dr. Reed asked, his scientific curiosity evidently piqued. Some humans produce a biochemical compound that allows for neural synchronization with the Khizri. They're a telepathic species. They literally cannot communicate effectively without this connection. Dr. Reed's eyes widened. The compound we detected in the girl's bloodstream is the marker for compatibility, Rin confirmed. She can already sense their thoughts and emotions without physical contact. That's extraordinarily rare, according to Dr. Chun, the xenobiologist who founded this settlement 15 years ago. Mira Chun. Dr. Reed looked stunned. She was declared dead after the Proxima Colony incident. Admiral Vargas studied Azura thoughtfully. You said they're refugees. From what? That's what we need to find out, Rin said. But whatever it is, it followed them to our system. That's what they've been trying to warn us about all this time. The Admiral exchanged glances with General Cole, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, she turned back to Rin. Commander Talos, I'm prepared to recognize your sovereignty declaration temporarily, pending a full investigation. But I need to see this settlement for myself, and I need to speak with Dr. Chun. Agreed, Rin said. But your vessels maintain their current position. No troops deployed. Acceptable terms, General Cole said before Vargas could respond. For now, as they prepared to descend into the crater, Rin felt a gentle pressure against his mind, not intrusive, but like a soft knock at a door. He looked at Azura, who was watching him intently. Understanding dawned. You want to show them, don't you? Like you showed Ellie. The Khizri lowered her massive body to the ground in the same inviting posture she had displayed in the hangar. Rin turned to the 3 Alliance officials. Azura is offering you something rarely given to humans without the compatibility marker, a direct experience of Kizri communication. It requires physical contact. She's extending a significant trust to you. One by one, they place their hands on her scales. Rin watched their expressions transform from cautious neutrality to astonishment, then understanding. My God, Dr. Reed whispered. The complexity, the depth. General Cole was blinking rapidly, as if fighting unexpected emotion. They've lost their homeworld. Billions of their kind gone. Admiral Vargas looked directly at Azura, then bowed her head slightly in a gesture of respect. We've made a terrible mistake. But we can correct it, Rin said firmly. Starting now. As they descended into the crater, Rin felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. There would be challenges ahead, diplomatic, scientific, military, but the first step had been taken. Understanding had begun. Ellie was waiting for them at the edge of the settlement, Trunkle clutched in one arm, while her other hand rested casually on the scales of a smaller Kizri. When she saw Run, her face lit up with a smile that warmed something deep in his chest. Commander, she called, running to meet him. Did you make the bad people go away? Rin crouched down to her level, wincing slightly at his still tender ribs. They weren't bad, Ellie. Just afraid and confused. But they're listening now. They want to help. She studied the Alliance officials with the solemn assessment only a child can give, then nodded in satisfaction. Good. Because we need to help the Kizri find their lost ones. She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. They think there might be more of them out there, hiding like they were. And we need to get ready. Ready for what? Ren asked, though a chill of premonition ran through him. Ellie's expression grew serious beyond her years. For what's coming? The thing that hurt their home. It's still out there. And it's still coming. Admiral Vargas stepped forward, crouching beside Rin to address Ellie directly. Then we'll face it together, she said, with a conviction that surprised Rin. Humans and Kizri as allies. Ellie smiled, a child's simple joy returning to her face. I knew you'd say that. Azura told me you would. She took Rin's hand. Can I show you something, Commander? Of course, he said, allowing her to lead him deeper into the settlement, the others following. She brought them to a crystalline structure near the center of the crater. Inside was a circular chamber with a pool of what appeared to be liquid crystal in the center. This is the memory heart, Ellie explained with the casual confidence of a child repeating something they've been told is important. It holds all their stories. Dr. Chen was waiting for them beside the pool. She nodded in greeting to the Alliance officials. Welcome to Haven, she said. I understand Azura has already shown you some of our truth. Enough to know we've made a grievous error, Vargas said. One we intend to rectify. Dr. Chen nodded, then gestured to the pool. Then perhaps you should see what we're truly facing. At her gesture, the liquid crystal began to shift and swirl. Images formed within, a beautiful world of crystalline cities and soaring Kizri. Then darkness falling as something massive eclipsed their sun. Ships unlike anything Run had ever seen, descending upon the Kizri homeworld. Destruction on a scale that made his combat-hardened mind recoil. When the images faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the chamber. They call themselves the Harvesters, Dr. Chen said quietly. They don't conquer or negotiate. They consume. Entire worlds stripped of all resources, including living beings. How long until they reach our system? General Cole asked. Less than 2 years, Dr. Chen replied grimly. Then we have work to do, Admiral Vargas said decisively. Commander Talos, your sovereignty declaration is officially recognized and will be expanded to include formal alliance status between the Terran Alliance and the Kizri settlement. As the adults began discussing strategy, Rin felt a small hand slip into his. Ellie looked up at him, Trunkle tucked securely under her arm. Are you going to stay with us, Commander? She asked. Rin glanced at Admiral Vargas, who gave him a subtle nod. Yes, Ellie. I'll be staying. Someone needs to serve as the Alliance liaison to Haven. Good, she said firmly. Because Azura likes you. And I like you too. Rin felt something shift in his chest, a warmth, a connection, a sense of purpose that went beyond military duty. In the space of a few days, his entire understanding of the universe had been upended. And somehow, this small girl had become the center of his new reality. I like you too, Ellie, he said softly. Very much. 6 months later, Rin stood on a bluff overlooking the expanded Haven settlement. What had once been a hidden refuge was now a thriving joint community and the headquarters for the Terran-Kizri Alliance. New structures rose from the crater floor, a harmonious blend of human and Kizri architecture. Ellie sat beside him, her legs dangling over the edge of the bluff. At nearly 7 now, she had grown an inch or two, but her essential nature remained unchanged, curious, brave, and possessed of a wisdom that sometimes startled him. "Do you think they'll come today?" she asked, scanning the sky. "The reports suggest they might," Ren replied. "The long-range scouts spotted their ship entering the system yesterday. They were waiting for the return of a joint Kizri-human expedition, the first of its kind, sent to a neighboring star system where Kizri refugees had been detected." Azura landed gracefully beside them, now bearing the insignia of the joint alliance on her harness. The neural link between her and Run had strengthened over the months, to the point where words were often unnecessary between them. Ellie stood up suddenly, pointing skyward. "There, I see them." Ren followed her gaze and spotted the distant shape descending through the atmosphere, a new class of vessel that combined human propulsion technology with Kizri crystal matrix energy systems. Alongside it flew smaller shapes, free-flying Kizri escorts. As they soared down toward the landing area on Azura's back, Ren reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. From decorated alliance commander to diplomat for a species humanity had once feared. From solitary career soldier to guardian. The vessel touched down, and after a moment, its hatch opened. The expedition team emerged, a mix of human scientists and Kizri explorers. And with them came new Kizri, their scale patterns subtly different from those Ren had grown familiar with. Ellie gasped as one of the newcomers approached Azura directly. This Kizri was smaller, with scales that shifted between green and gold. It bowed its head in what Ren now recognized as a gesture of deep respect. Azura trembled beneath them. Through their link, Ren felt a wave of emotion so powerful it nearly overwhelmed him. Joy, disbelief, and a sense of homecoming so profound it brought tears to his eyes. "They know each other," Ellie whispered in awe. "Azura, who is this?" The answer came not in words but in feelings and images, shared memories of flight through crystal forests, of nestlings raised together, of separation during the desperate escape from their dying world. "Her clutch sister," Ren translated, his voice thick with emotion. Azura thought she had died when their evacuation ships were separated. Ellie approached the new Kizri without fear. "Hello," she said simply. "I'm Ellie. Welcome to Haven." The Kizri lowered her head to the child's level, then gently nudged Ellie's chest with her snout. Dr. Chen laughed in delight. She recognizes Ellie's compatibility. That's a gesture of kinship. As more of the newly arrived Kizri approached, each greeting Azura with joyful recognition, Ren put his arm around Ellie's shoulders. The small girl who had once been used as bait had become the bridge between two species, and in the process, had given him something he'd never expected to find, a family. "Thank you," he whispered to her. "For what?" she asked, looking up at him with curious eyes. "For teaching me that sometimes the greatest courage isn't in fighting," he said, "but in trusting." Ellie smiled and leaned against him. "We're going to be okay, aren't we? Even when the harvesters come." Ren looked out at the humans and Kizri working together, preparing for the battle that lay ahead. "Yes," he said with quiet certainty. "We're going to be okay. Because sometimes, the most powerful weapon against darkness wasn't firepower or technology, but understanding. And a child's unshakable belief that even the most fearsome dragon could become a protector, if only we were brave enough to see them not as monsters, but as allies." And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.